Good morning, team. Thank you so much for jumping on the call today. Listen, we're gonna start, getting into the weeds here on your business and these 10 transactional processes. Today, we're going to talk about, your ability of defining your value by mastering the initial buyer consultation. But before I get into that, I want to remind you of my professional purpose. And my professional purpose is to help you, the broker advisor, optimize your productivity and help you become the best version of yourself. Why? Because happy brokers sell more real estate. And I do that by helping you face the challenges and opportunities that you face every single day as a real estate broker. If you can effectively manage these certain situations that come up and arise on a daily basis, you will be more productive and live a life that is the best version of you. And my ask is that you listen today to me as if we are on a one-on-one coaching session or via a phone call, or if you're right here with me in my office. That's really my intent, is for me to talk to you today as if I am speaking with you one-on-one. And if you're out walking the dog or listen to this in the podcast format, and you're taking a walk or working out, whatever it might be, welcome. I appreciate you. And but let's hop right into today's call. On this 229th episode of my Monday Morning Pep Talk, I will break down what you'll need to address in your business to prepare for the changes our industry will experience this summer. Today, we'll start with the buy side and we'll focus on what you can do to best demonstrate your unique value proposition to prospective buyer clients, right? By mastering the initial consultation. And before we get into this content today, I got a few reminders and updates that I want to hit that I feel like I need to continue to express. So when you do listen to my Monday Morning Pep Talks, you'll have, you'll be more prepared. You'll have the most up-to-date information here. And, it's important that if you hear me repeat something over and over again or update you on certain things, that is by design, because not everyone will listen to these calls every week. So there's some major points here that we need to hit. So first and foremost, I want to remind you about the law of compensation. And according to Bob Berg via his book, The Go-Giver, your compensation is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. The law of compensation is based on how many people you serve and how well you serve them. And your ability to serve them is based on your value proposition. And as we move through this call, you will hear the word value over and over again. Okay. Now, a few specifics on the settlement. On page 28 and 29 of the NAR Settlement, it states that a buyer broker is required to have a signed buyer agency agreement with a negotiated commission structure signed prior to showing properties. Okay, you have to have that form, or you will have to have, once approved, that buyer agency form signed, and it's got to outlay your commission structure that you've negotiated and agreed upon with them before you show any properties. Okay. Number 3, on those same pages, 28 and 29 of the NAR Settlement, a buyer broker can only get paid what has been negotiated with the buyer, even if the listing agent seller offers a higher compensation amount. Brokerages will only be able to pay out what you have negotiated, or the seller, I should say, what you've negotiated with the buyer, even if what the listing agent or the seller, if they offer something higher, you can only be paid out what was negotiated with the buyer. Your fee will no longer be protected, as you know, by the MLS advertised compensation field. Okay, so all compensation must be verified, negotiated documented, agreed upon by all parties. So from a process standpoint, this is where it's going to get interesting, and we'll get more into that here locally, because every brokerage, every hyper local market, every association is going to have different forms, different requirements, etc. Okay. For those of you in the 18 states where many of these changes have already been in practice, this transition will not be as significant. But for those of us in Illinois and other states, this process will require a complete upgrade to how we transact with buyers. Okay. The first area that needs an upgrade is your initial buyer consultation. We talked about, like I said last week, the 10 different transactional processes that you need to really address in your business. The first one being the buyer consultation, initial buyer consultation process. Not unlike a listing presentation, the initial buyer consultation process will need to occur, resulting in a signed buyer agency agreement. That agreement must include a negotiated commission structure. Okay. I see the initial buyer consultation being broken down into several parts, and the presentation should be done in person or via Zoom. Okay. It should be done in person or via Zoom so you can share documents. You can go through things. It's really hard to do this over the phone. So you're going to need to set up this appointment in person or via Zoom prior to showing properties. Okay. So prior to the initial consultation, I would send a digital marketing brochure complete with a synopsis of your experience, also as a way to reconfirm the appointment. Okay. So just like we do on listings, you send them information about your process, what you do. This should also include testimonials, right? This way you are letting them know by sending them that information in advance. It lets them know that you're a professional, that you're excited about that meeting, and that you're going to come prepared to take them through your processes. Now, number two, this is where we have a listening presentation. A listening presentation. This is the portion of the consultation where you decipher the needs and the goals of the buyer. Why are they moving? What is their time frame? Do they have a property to sell? Do they need to sell their property first, right, before purchasing a new property? This is when you can connect with the buyer or buyers, and this is when the relationship is formed. This is when the relationship is formed. The presentation will take on a different tone if you've already worked with the buyers in the past, right? It's that trust building process is different if you have already worked with them in the past. If you haven't, guess what? This is when you have to really listen. You have to really listen to what the buyers are going to need in this process. And that way they're going to be way more open to the value that you're going to present during the rest of the presentation. The third part of a good buyer's initial consultation is that you do an expectation setting. This is where you describe the current real estate market and the seasonal trends that are apparent in your hyper local market. This is where you start to weave in your value on how you've helped your clients navigate your market in the past. Okay. You're weaving in your value. They should be having some aha moments here. Like, man, I can't do this by myself. Brokers do this. They do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. This is where you're setting those expectations. Number 4, discuss the financial qualification. Where are they in the mortgage commitment process? Have they started? Are they paying cash? Will they be getting a mortgage? Do they have a mortgage lender? And do they need an introduction? So this is where you start to talk about the financial qualification and what that process looks like. Okay. And what is needed as part of the contract in order to have a successful signed contract, right? got to have that financial qualification up front. And what I mean by that is you're not qualifying them, obviously, but you're talking about what their needs are and what you can do to help them. Number 5, the search process. Again, we're weaving in our value here. Describe your search process and how you evaluate the market to identify properties of interest. Again, we're weaving in our value as part of this conversation. You could talk here about these hyper-local market inventory, whether it's low inventory or there's a lot of inventory out there. This is where you're talking about how you identify properties. In a low inventory market, you're out there working with other brokers to identify off-market properties, obviously. In areas that there's a lot more inventory, we're looking at, we have a little bit more flexibility and able to fit them into properties that are a little bit more what they're looking for. And so it's different based on inventory level. Okay. But this again is you are helping them see your value and what you do during the search process. And then of course the contract to close process. This is where most brokers need to summarize and explain the value a talented broker brings to a transaction. How many steps, tasks does your process include? What are the major transaction milestones in the buyer process from contract to close? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I have 17 major milestones that I track, and within those, there's 121 subtasks that I take you through during this process to make sure I'm hitting all the finer details of the contract to close process. Now, team, what I just gave you there was an example. Those numbers are going to be different based on your process, okay? But I think it's really important for them to know that you are going through all of these steps on every transaction. So important, because they're going to be saying to themselves, I don't want to do that. I don't have time to do all those things. I didn't know you had to do X, Y, and Z. And in this situation, this is where you might be able to pull up your transaction software or your Google Sheet or whatever it might be that you use. They should also know what they can expect from you post-closing. Okay. What can they expect from you post-closing? Number 7, this is where you're going to discuss your professional fee. Present the buyer agency form and what it means, and discuss your professional fee, the time frame that you're considering with them, and other business terms that are on that form. Okay. Explain that you cannot start your search process and show properties until the document is signed. Okay. That's where we're going to have to get good, right? For many of us. Those of you in the 18 states have been doing this, so it's not as big of a deal. Others in other states, there's a less of a qualification process, meaning might just be describing agency, okay, which was what the state had set as their baseline. Okay, so it's all going to change in many of these states. All right. Signed document. Once you've explained and negotiated, that document can be signed there in person, or send them a DocuSign immediately if you're doing it via Zoom. Have them review it and sign it. Okay. Number 9, follow up. Once you're done with your presentation, okay, where you want to send them that signed document and highlight all of the steps of your process. So in the beginning, you're giving them some details on what you're going to be talking about during that presentation. And then, of course, you're going to have that follow-up piece. Okay. At that point in time, once everything's signed, then you start the search process. And then number 10, you're going to make that introduction to loan officers and other service providers that are needed in this process. So that's the 10 steps or 10 areas that I personally feel like you need in an initial buyer consultation. It's just a guide. It's just a guide for you to get started. Okay. And, again, many of you have already got this set up and it's built. For those of you that don't, I'm speaking to you today and giving you that guide. Once you've been through this, now it's time to move into the search process, which will probably not be all that different than what you're doing today. But I do encourage you to use this reset, this industry reset, to completely level up all aspects of your business processes. Okay. I've presented these 10 steps of the initial buyer consultation process as at an extremely high level. Okay. For those of you that have been in the business for a while, you understand that there are hundreds of steps and tasks that it takes to take a prospect to a client, and then a client to the closing table and beyond. Those of you that develop the best repeatable processes and provide the most complete and predictable experience for your clients will not struggle to explain your value and your fee. As a result, you will take market share. As a result, you will take market share in this new environment. No doubt about it. For those of you that already have processes in place, those of you that have been listening to Take Flight over the course of the last several years and have put all of these processes in place, they're documented and they're in use, right? You're proficient at all of these 10 transactional processes. You really have a real opportunity to create a dream scenario for your business. A dream scenario for your business. I'm excited for all of us. This is a chance for us to level up and do a great job and take market share. My guiding principle for you today is your value proposition is only as good as your processes. Your value proposition is only as good as your processes. Okay, what are the next steps? What are the next steps? I would definitely sync up with your accountability partners and really beat up your initial buyer consultation process. Get it out of your head and documented. You could start in Excel or a Google Sheet. Each state, each local market, each association, and each brokerage will have different requirements that address the NAR settlement. So hopefully you found today's call helpful as a high level guide. If you're listening as a broker with us at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, we will be updating Propel, which is our intranet site, with all of the changes and all the requirements and all the documents as they happen. Of course, we're going to train like crazy on this. Next week on my Monday Morning Pep Talk, I'm going to be discussing the importance of including a buyer's agent in the listing process, right? Why is it important to have a buyer's agent on the other side of the contract why is that important for the seller? Okay. All of the details, all of the points and why it's important to have someone inserted into that transaction, why it's important to incent them to bring buyers to a seller's listing. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next week. Team, hopefully, like me, you're looking at this as an opportunity. Okay, in 2008, I had my real estate heart attack, and it was because of that I'm doing what I'm doing today. It was because of that real estate heart attack that I'm doing today what I am. And look at this as a real opportunity. Okay, so we'll lead you through it. I'm going to get you there. I appreciate you being here with me in my own small little part of the internet here. So if you're not, follow me on YouTube. Please go hit subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you sign up for my weekly email, which has all of this content in written word. I have a lot of agents that have a file for those emails. They tuck them away there so they can go back and read. Some people are visual learners. Others are learn through audio. But it's important that if you're not getting that email, you go to my Instagram at Ask Jim Miller, go online. There's a place that you can sign up, a link, or you can just go to Jim at AskJimMiller.com. and just send me your information. I'll get you on the list. Team, thank you. Big group today. I appreciate you being with me, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks, team.